Stop what you're doing, family, and pay close attention because what I'm going to play for you will rock the church to its foundation. An audio tape that purports to be of Prophet Brian Carr himself has been leaked online, and many people are saying that he has no place holding any kind of pulpit because the statements on this audio are so shocking and incendiary. Never again, never now. What did they say? And why is the internet urging him to resign right now? Stay with me, because you won't believe the stunning truth that lies within this confession. Let me tell you, family, you can immediately tell that a leaked audio recording is going to cause a stir in the gospel world when it appears online, especially if it is associated with a controversial person like Prophet Brian Carr. While his devoted supporters have long hailed Carr as a prophetic voice, his detractors have charged him with being dishonest, deceitful, and even scandalous. However, since this supposed tape confession has surfaced, the discussion has moved from conjecture to what some are referring to as indisputable evidence. In this video, we will analyze the specific content of the leaked recording, the quick responses from church officials and people, and the possible repercussions. You will hear, in addition to not only the words that have people asking for clarification, but also the background, the history, and the potential effects on Brian K's ministry in the future. And believe me, there's a part of this story that will leave you stunned. Just when you think you've heard it all, insiders are already chatting behind the scenes, and you won't believe who is connected to this tape, because the most startling disclosures occur in the latter portions of this video. Be sure to watch it through to the finish. The narrative starts with a straightforward upload, an anonymous post on social media, which quickly spreads over Twitter, Facebook groups, and gospel blogs. Within hours, thousands of people were analyzing the purportedly Prophet Brian K. featured recording that had been leaked. They were slowing it down, replaying it, and attempting to ascertain its authenticity. It's not simply the voice that many people believe belongs to Ka that makes this recording so disturbing. It's what's being said. A person is purportedly heard in the video admitting to hardships, mistakes, and decisions that many would argue totally disqualify a guy from serving behind the pulpit. We're discussing admissions that go well beyond errors. They seem like intentional behavioral habits that run counter to the reputation Kay has cultivated over the years. Now, let's put this in perspective before we get ahead of ourselves. Controversy is nothing new to Prophet Brian Carr. He has been accused of misbehavior in ministry, plagiarism in his predictions, and dubious conduct off the stage for years. He has always been able to quiet his detractors, reorganize, and continue to attract sizable crowds. This audio, however, feels different. Why? Because it doesn't originate from a critic, a rumor, or an outsider. He is said to have said it himself. Imagine listening to this audio as a devoted follower who has contributed to his ministry, believed his prophecies, and stood up for him against his detractors. Anger and outrage on the internet have been stoked by this feeling of betrayal. Not only are people astonished, but they also feel duped, misinformed, and sometimes even devastated. This is where the intensity increases even further. According to some insiders, it's possible that someone close to him purposefully leaked this tape. That begs the question: by whom was it recorded? What caused the leak? And why would they want to make it public now? Let's first examine what the actual statements in this recording mean and why so many people think that this could be the end of Brian K's ministry as we know it. Before delving into who might be responsible for this leak, most individuals hurried to listen to the audio once or twice when it first came out. But when podcasters, bloggers, and even other church leaders started dissecting it piece by piece, the true firestorm began. And we're going to accomplish just that right here, because the details in this recording are equally as powerful as the overall message. A startling acknowledgement of personal hardship is among the first claims made in the tape. The voice, which many believe to be Brian K.S., admits shortcomings in areas where preachers typically conceal them behind well-rehearsed sermons and produce performances. The remarks sound more like a private admission that was never intended to be seen than a public confession, since they are unvarnished and unadulterated. This is where things become even more intriguing. The purported confession is more than just a sign of weakness. It implies recurring conduct, patterns of repetition that are a sharp contrast to the integrity and holiness that are demanded of a man of the cloth. It sounds like someone is leading two lives, to put it simply, assuming the role of prophet in public while in private struggling with decisions that contradict that very calling. The audio has been characterized by listeners as a mixture of anger and grief. Hearing a man who may be sobbing due to his own hardships makes some feel sorry for him. Others are upset because they think this is evidence of dishonesty and that people were misled for years while he was fighting behind the scenes, which should have disqualified him from becoming a leader. And this is a crucial section. References to concealing information, preventing the truth from being revealed, and maintaining the image are made throughout the tape. Regardless of whether the statements were made in good faith, irony, or sincerity, they have sparked discussions about accountability and openness in the church. What happens to the ministry itself, after all, when a leader expends so much effort attempting to preserve an image? The most astounding part, though, might be when the purported voice discusses the pulpit itself. It sounds like a direct admission that perhaps I shouldn't even be up there at one point in the tape. Take a moment to process that. This isn't being said by a blogger, journalist, or reviewer. Supposedly, it's Brian K. Just think about the weight of that. A man preaching in front of thousands of people week after week while privately acknowledging that he might not have any right to be there. Many claim that this is the point at which the confession moves from a private weakness to a public disqualification. How can the congregation overlook the fact that the individual in the recording is admitting that they are unable to lead? This is the cliffhanger, so let's take a moment to reflect. What if I told you that the tape might allude to deeper disputes involving other church officials in addition to Karen's personal hardships? Because hidden within these tapes are allusions to talks with other people, names that, if confirmed, might rock not only his ministry but also a number of significant churches that were associated with him. At that point, things take a whole different course. The impact of this leaked tape was instantaneous and indisputable. As soon as it appeared online, social media was inundated with comments, memes, contentious discussions, and moving testimony from many who said Prophet Brian K's ministry had a direct influence on them within hours. While some fervently defended him, others demanded that he resign right now. Pastors and bloggers went live on Facebook Live at midnight to share their opinions, drawing thousands of visitors who were eager to participate in the conversation. The leaked confession was making waves on Twitter in the gospel and church communities, with hashtags like church accountability and step down car being posted nonstop. Reaction videos also started to appear on YouTube like wildfire. Some, driven by indignation and curiosity, amassed tens of thousands of views in a single night. Three major groupings have emerged from the reactions. The devoted protectors. These are Brian K's ardent followers, who think that all that was purportedly recorded in this audio is just proof that he is a human being and that every man of God experiences hardships. They see this as a test, a storm, or even an enemy attack to undermine a strong prophet. Scriptures regarding grace, forgiveness, and not touching God's anointed will be cited by them. The irate critics on the opposing side include a number of lifelong detractors, church watchers, and former members who believe this to be the last nail in the coffin. They have been warning for years that K's trustworthiness was doubtful, that his ministry had flaws, and that scandals appeared to follow him. They see this tape as proof of what they have been saying all along. They have a clear message. Ka has no right to deliver another sermon if this confession is genuine. The middle, broken. The group that may be the most significant comes next. They're just regular churchgoers, people who genuinely trusted his words, knitted into his vision, and believed in his ministry. This isn't about assaulting or protecting for them. It has to do with dealing with betrayal. Imagine attending church every Sunday and paying close attention to everything your pastor says, only to have him confess things on video that cause you to doubt his entire purpose. This group is grieving, not just furious. However, it extends beyond the congregation. There have also been opinions from other gospel leaders. Some pastors are demanding that Ka be held immediately accountable and that he either resign temporarily or be the subject of a formal church investigation, because their own ministries might be linked to his, or because they don't want to get caught in the crossfire. Others are being mute. This is where things start to get messy. According to insiders, the audio release was not an accident. Rather, it might have originated from a member of his close circle who chose to expose him after having access to private talks. This goes beyond what was stated on the recording. If that is the case, betrayal among his closest associates is another factor. Consider it. Who else could have captured this private moment on camera? Who was motivated to overthrow him? More significant concerns regarding accountability in the contemporary church have also been brought up by the consequences. How frequently are pastors and prophets actually held responsible for their acts in a time where they are regarded like celebrities? When something like this comes up, how many church boards, if any, are prepared to intervene and demand answers? Furthermore, how often have scandals been ignored because executives are more concerned with safeguarding the brand than the people? This is where it becomes even more startling, though, because there are rumors that the consequences could affect much more people than simply Brian K., even while the church community debates whether he should resign. According to others, this might attract additional pastors, bishops, and ministries associated with him. This is more than a one-man controversy. If those rumors are accurate, it can start a domino effect that reveals a whole network. This brings us to our next query. What specific hidden connections are indicated in the audio leak? And why are some religious leaders rushing to put Ka out of their minds at this time? This is where things begin to become more complicated and gloomy, because many who have closely listened to the audio leak claim that this was more than just a man disclosing his personal difficulties. No, the implications, the subliminal references to other church officials, the behind-the-scenes activities, and the type of private discussions that the majority of churchgoers will never be able to hear are what make this video even more combustible. The purported voice can be heard obliquely mentioning discussions with other pastors and agreements to keep some things hidden at one point in the recording. Even though no identities have been confirmed specifically, the mere words have sparked a flurry of conjecture. These pastors are who? Are they national leaders or local leaders? Is it possible that Ka and other prominent ministers have shared platforms? Consider it. Prophet Brian Ka is not your typical preacher from a tiny community. He has shared the pulpit alongside gospel artists, bishops, and apostles and performed on national platforms. The network may be far wider than simply his own ministry if this recording suggests that he is participating in concealing problems or sharing secrets with others. And this is where accountability becomes problematic in the modern church, since leaders tend to shield one another from problems involving them. Pastors frequently keep quiet about the misbehavior of other leaders just because they have shared platforms, invited each other, or profited financially from each other's followings. That is to say, sometimes being silent does not equate to being devoted to God. It's business loyalty. And now for something much more startling. According to some insiders, the release might have been timed carefully. Why now? Why is this audio being released at this specific time? Perhaps someone in Ka's inner circle wanted to destroy him before he started a new project, a revival tour, or a significant collaboration. Is it possible that rivals in the megagarch or prophetic communities thought this was the ideal chance to silence a rival voice? Whether you like it or not, the gospel industry is frequently just an industry. Furthermore, secrets have a tendency of turning into weapons when money, notoriety, and power are on the line. Holding K responsible may not be the only goal of this disclosure. It can be an attempt to upset the balance of power in the ecclesiastical community. However, we must not ignore the human aspect. The voice on the purported audio mentions bearing enormous loads, maintaining appearances, and not wanting the truth to destroy everything. That gives the impression of a man who is under a lot of stress. This is where things start to get chilly. What if there are others in this situation besides Ka? What if dozens of prophets, pastors, and bishops are struggling in private to keep up their public personas while also dealing with personal issues that run counter to their teachings? For this reason, some people think this audio might just be the beginning. If a single video can reveal a ministry's weaknesses, what would happen if other tapes, screenshots, or leaks from other leaders came to light? Would that degree of publicity be acceptable to the church community? Or would it cause such a shock that whole organizations would fall apart? And now for the cliffhanger you must consider. There are a few lines near the end of the release film that almost seem like warnings, as though the speaker was getting ready to fall and knew the truth could eventually surface. Those lines have even been read by some as a subliminal acknowledgement that he might pull other names into the flames with him. It's no longer simply about Brian K. If that's the case, it concerns the potential disintegration of an entire web of covert pacts, covert transgressions, and unwritten agreements between some of the most powerful individuals in the Black church community. This leads us to the crucial query: how will the gospel world respond if this leak does indeed pave the way for the exposure of further leaders? Will there be reform and responsibility at last? Or will the pattern of scandals, quiet, and cover-ups persist? Let's stand back for a minute, family, because while Brian K.'s purportedly leaked tape may have been the catalyst for this whole controversy, it has since expanded to involve much more than just one man. Not all of the discussions taking place in church foyers, online, and even at dinner tables are about K. They have to do with the leadership culture of the contemporary church. Some pastors and prophets have been considered untouchable for years because of their power, charisma, or the size of their congregations. They have been exalted, treated more like celebrities than shepherds, and protected from responsibility. Asking difficult questions is sometimes discouraged in congregations, and those who do so are seen as rebellious or polarizing. However, this release has rekindled the discussion. Do we need to hold leaders to a higher standard? If so, who is in charge of implementing it? Consider it. Strict accountability procedures are in place in practically every other field where lives are affected, including medicine, education, and the judiciary. However, responsibility in the church is all too frequently optional, dependent on interpersonal ties, or non-existent. Instead of standing aside to face their shortcomings, leaders frequently shelter behind grace when scandals occur, pleading with others not to pass judgment. The people who tithe, serve, and make sacrifices are left feeling deceived and abandoned by this loop of cover-ups. We are forced to face some difficult realities by the kin debate. It compels us to consider if the contemporary church has put people before doctrine. Has the demand for holiness and integrity been overshadowed by the desire for influence, large conferences, and crowded stadiums? Perhaps most significantly, when church leaders are frequently implicated in scandals but seldom suffer long-term repercussions, what message does this portray to the outside world? Now, this moment is more than simply drama or rumors to many who are listening to the recording. It serves as a warning. It serves as a reminder that no matter how talented or anointed a guy appears to be, you should never put your faith in him. Given that humans are fallible, it ought to be entrusted to God. Leaders can fail. When they do, the question is whether we will address it honestly and openly, or if we will hide it until the next controversy breaks out. Here's another thing to think about. Although this circumstance has caused division, it has also brought individuals who are calling for change together. The bright side of all of this is that scandal may actually lead to reform. More people are speaking up and saying, enough is enough. We want transparency. We want leaders who walk in integrity. We want a church culture that values truth over image. Let's go back to the man who started it all, though. Brian Ka, the prophet. One thing is certain, regardless of your feelings toward him, whether you think he is a false prophet or a flawed human, his reputation has been permanently changed by this released tape. This genie cannot be placed back in the bottle. These remarks, which were never intended for public consumption, will now be used to evaluate his ministry, impact, and even legacy. Thus, this is the last query. Will Brian K. accept responsibility for his actions, or will he carry on as if nothing had occurred? Will the Christian community eventually demand higher standards beyond that? Will there be another scandal, another cover-up, and another wave of disillusioned believers abandoning the religion? Or will history repeat itself?